We all know Sheffield's great, but why? Could you sell it to someone? Could you persuade them that this is the place they wanted to live? What I'd like you to do is take a clean page, turn it sideways, and in the centre of it, create a spider diagram called Sheffield is Great. And around the centre of the spider, I'd like you to put at least 5 ideas, 5 things that make Sheffield a great place to live. Pause the recording here and start it again when you've finished. Okay, so now your task is to put a little bit of specific detail on that. So for example, you might have said that Sheffield is close to the countryside. Well, which bit of countryside? How close? Or what can you do in the countryside? Why is that an advantage? So around your spider diagram, put in at least one extra piece of detail for each of those ideas. Again, pause the recording here and start it again when you've completed the task. Today, as part of our preparation for paper 2, we're going to look at part of the Urban Issues and Challenges module. This has got 4 sections to it. The first is about the general growth in the world population and the growth in cities as people migrate from countryside to cities. The second section is about an urban area in a low-income country or a newly emerging economy. We chose Rio for this one. The third section is about a UK city, looking at the challenges and opportunities there. We chose Sheffield. And finally, we look at urban sustainability. We looked at a combination of Freiburg and Sheffield for this part. But today, we're going to look at one section of that. And the key idea is that urban changes in cities in the UK leads to a variety of social, economic and environmental opportunities and challenges. This is the specification content for this part of the unit. First of all, we have to just have a brief overview of where the population of the UK lives and where the major cities are. Most of this part of the unit is taken up by an in-depth case study of a chosen city, and we chose Sheffield. We need to look at the location and importance of the city, the impact of national and international migration on the growth of the city and the character of it, how the city has offered opportunities and how those opportunities have changed as time has gone on, and how living in this urban area has created challenges for people, the environment, etc., etc. Finally, we need to go on and look at an urban regeneration project to show how part of the city has been improved. That all sounds quite a lot, but actually, when it comes down to it, what it means is, where does the UK population live? What's so great about Sheffield? What problems does Sheffield face? And what's being done to solve the problems? Which is a lot easier to think about. So let's start off with that first idea. Where does the UK's population live? If we look at the map on this slide, you can see that there are areas of sparse population, which are in the greys and greens, and areas of dense population, which are in the oranges and dark reds. Our sparse population is often in the mountainous areas. Most of those areas are in Scotland. You can see central and northern Scotland there is quite mountainous, and so is southern Scotland, with just a thin band in between with a denser population, including cities like Glasgow and Edinburgh. Also places like the Lake District and central Wales are mountainous and therefore difficult to live in, and they end up with a sparse population. The main areas of dense population, therefore, are on the lower, flatter land. It's got a better climate, it's easier to travel around, easier to build on, and certainly easier to farm. The main area is the southeast of England, around the Greater London area. But there's quite a large area of population in central England, which is around the southern end of the Pennines. It includes Manchester and Sheffield, Liverpool there, but also Birmingham, Derby, Nottingham, etc. So starting to look at Sheffield, the very first thing you need to know is where it is. And it's slap bang in the middle, really. It's in central England, South Yorkshire, east of the Pennines on the M1 motorway. And it's unique in being the only city in the UK to be partially inside a national park, the Peak District. And Sheffield is an important city. It's not the largest, but it has an importance to the rest of the country and to the rest of the world. To start off with, it's the fastest growing city outside of London. That shows its popularity. It's obviously got a lot of opportunities to offer, which we'll look at later on. The universities are a big draw to the city with over 60,000 students, many of those from abroad. These universities bring people into the city temporarily, but then many of those people choose to stay when they get to love the city. Of course, Sheffield's famous for steel, and although it's not a major employer in the city anymore, we still make as much steel as we ever did, in fact possibly more, and it's particularly good quality steel too, so Sheffield has an international reputation. A lot of people think of Sheffield as a sporting city. This is where the professional game of football started up, for example. And it continues today with Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United, although Sheffield Club is still going. That's the oldest football club in the world. And the oldest continually used football ground is used by Sheffield Hallam. We've also got other sports with other teams like the Steelers, the Sharks and the Eagles in ice hockey, basketball and rugby, for example. And Sheffield was chosen on at least 2 occasions to be a national centre for sport. We were chosen for the World Student Games, and that's part of that Ponds Forge that was left. And we were chosen also to have the English Institute of Sport, which is one of several locations around the city where expert training and facilities are provided. We are, of course, a shopping centre. Although Sheffield city centre might have suffered slightly when Meadowhall was built, between the two of them, it's quite a large shopping centre with a lot of retail opportunities, and people come from many places to go to Meadowhall because of its easy accessibility on the M1. And lastly, for now perhaps, we can think about the theatres with their international reputation. Although I have sneaked on a picture here of Heathen Beer by Aberdale Brewery, Sheffield is on the Real Ale Trail. It's one of the greatest places in the country for real ales. So here's a graph of Sheffield's population. See how it's grown over the years. Back in the 1700s, Sheffield was a relatively small place. We were making cutlery by that point, but still the population was quite low. Well, during the Industrial Revolution, we discovered a way of making better steel, the crucible process, which was discovered by Benjamin Huntsman. And the population of Sheffield started to grow from that point. The Industrial Revolution continued through the late 1700s and early 1800s, really boosting the size of the city. And of course, all the factories and opportunities that were then created meant that people continued to move into the city from the countryside to take up those opportunities. As the steel industry began to decline, we started to see Sheffield's increase in population slowed and levelled out. But in more recent times, we've had other boosts to the population. For example, migration from Asia, which accounts for our large Asian population, about half of which come from Pakistan. More recently, we've seen a boost in the city's numbers due to students coming in, but also other people moving to get the combination of opportunities that Sheffield presents: cheap housing, job opportunities, access to the countryside, educational facilities, etc., etc. So the population today is a little shy of 600,000 people. And how's all that changed the character? Well, here's London Road. Have a look how it's changed. You can see that many of the shops have been taken over by restaurants from different parts of the world. This has added to the character of London Road and made it a really vibrant part of the city. And each of those migrations from different parts of the world has brought in parts of their culture, which has just added to the variety of flavours that we have in Sheffield, making it a much more interesting city to live in. Sheffield is full of opportunities. We've got quite affordable housing. Considering that we are such a popular city, it's surprising, but Sheffield housing is considered to be affordable, partly because the wages in the city are relatively high compared to the actual housing prices. We've got a wide variety of jobs. We'll look in more detail at some of those jobs, but just think about the universities and all the high-paid jobs that are offered there. For example, think about the retail opportunities, think about the opportunities in sports, for example, at the English Institute of Sport, And all of those opportunities mean that people want to be in the city. It's a good place to shop, with 2 major shopping centres, not too big, not too small. We've got lots of entertainments with world-class theatres, education opportunities, and we are the outdoor city. It's really easy to walk from parts of Sheffield into the countryside or walk into the Sheffield city centre. And that makes it a really accessible city for people. Let's have a look at jobs in a little more detail. Sheffield is still known as the Steel City, but are we? Well, the graph on this slide suggests that perhaps we're not. When we look at the types of jobs that there are in Sheffield, the largest single sector is public administration, education and health jobs. And that shows where the opportunities really lie today. There's a fair chunk of jobs in the financial sector and in retail as well, with manufacturing coming in at around about 12 or 11%. That includes the steel making jobs, but is by no means just steel making jobs. So we're going to look in a little more detail at one opportunity offered in Sheffield, which is Sheffield Enterprise Zone and the Advanced Manufacturing Park. This works really well for you because this is part of the Economic Development Unit of work as well, and so we can use it twice. And it's also, for this particular unit, suggests a reason why people want to live in Sheffield or move to Sheffield, as well as how an area of Sheffield has been developed and improved. So it covers quite a lot of different things. So this is part of Sheffield City Region Enterprise Zone, which runs along the M1 corridor. And there's lots of different opportunities there for manufacturing, engineering, technology-based jobs. As all part of that, we've got the Advanced Manufacturing Park itself, we've got Sheffield Business Park, the Tinsley Industrial Estate, and also the airport in Doncaster. And this isn't just any old science park. This has been rated as the #1 enterprise zone for modern manufacturing in the UK. So this is where the AMP Technology Centre is. It's just near junction 33 of the M1. If you can imagine travelling out from Ponds Forge and Park Square roundabout there out to the M1, then you've passed it, although you probably wouldn't have noticed. It's tucked away off a junction off Sheffield Parkway. This area holds a lot of advantages for the AMP Centre. The motorway itself offers great links to Leeds to the north, Nottingham, Derby to the south, and London eventually in the south as well. That means that you've got access to those cities, and the people in those cities have got access to the AMP. And importantly, it means that really highly qualified people from the universities in Leeds, let's say, or from London, or financial experts, or people with skills that Sheffield may not necessarily have, can commute to work at the AMP. And so that means that they've got access to some of the best minds and some of the best skills to help their businesses. You're also close to Sheffield Doncaster Airport, around about half an hour away, I would say. And that means you've got international access. In fact, within 90 minutes, you're at several different international airports, Leeds, Bradford, East Midlands, for example, which means that you can hit several different destinations and that those people from those other countries can get to you quite easily. And modern technology isn't nationally based, it's an international thing, so you can get the best experts from around the world to come to you and showcase your skills and your technologies. We're also close to a deep sea dock in Hull, which means that you can import and export larger items. And a lot closer to home, we're near to Sheffield, with all the advantages that brings. It offers cheap housing, relatively so. It offers fantastically skilled workers from the 2 universities there. It's got a high technology supply chain already and a real precision manufacturing supply chain as well in the steel industry, for example. And so there are huge amounts of benefits of being close to there, the workers and the universities, but also the components for the things that you're making. And finally, it's cheap land towards the edge of the city. It wasn't hugely in demand and therefore the prices were low. So a major component of this is the AMRC, the Advanced Manufacturing and Research Centre, which is a research and development facility with connections around the globe. And located there, we have internationally renowned companies such as Rolls-Royce, which makes engines for aeroplanes, for example. We've got Boeing, similar aeroplane components. McLaren Automotive, they make cars, including Formula One cars. So this international reputation brings a huge advantage to Sheffield. It makes people sit up and notice Sheffield as a place that can host these huge companies, and people from all around the world will come to visit, find out more about Sheffield, maybe even move and live and work here as part of the Advanced Manufacturing Park. So we zoom in now to look at one company from the Advanced Manufacturing Park, and that's McLaren Automotive. McLaren make Formula One cars and supercars. And so here we're talking about jobs pushing the boundaries of technology in automotive engineering. It's brought a boost of around about £100 million to the local economy, which means jobs, it means the multiplier effect. And so we have this large scale investment in the city bringing this opportunity. Another company within the park is Boeing, and as you probably know, Boeing make aeroplanes. There's a £40 million facility located on the Sheffield Business Park as part of the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre. They employ 75 people with 30 apprenticeships, so that's young people learning the trade, learning those skills which they can continue to use at Boeing or maybe take into their own businesses. You need to know a bit of the history of Sheffield. You need to know how and why it grew to become the city it became. And you also need to be able to advertise the city to people. Could you persuade someone to move here because of all the opportunities? What are those opportunities? And what facts and figures would you use to persuade them? Here are some questions that you might see in an exam. For a major city in the UK that you've studied, explain how migration has affected the character of the city. So here you'd be expected to say who migrated when and why, and then how that's changed the city and the opportunities or challenges that the city has. Now we'll look a little more at challenges in another lesson. Oh, here's another one, a 9 marker. To what extent can urban change create opportunities in UK cities? Use a named example. So here you would be looking at all the changes that have happened in Sheffield and how those created opportunities. So you could again be looking at migration, or you could be looking at the establishment of industries or opportunities like the AMP, for example, and trying to explain how those create opportunities for people to work and earn a living and create a good quality of life.